Get your stinking rat out. It's late night large.
Hello everyone, welcome to another Lockdown Large Extra Time, where me and Mike riff on a subject of our choosing. And once again this week, or rather this weekend just gone, there's another massive story in the world of football, so our minds were made up relatively easily. So tonight me and Mike thought we'd chew the fat over it's pretty unprecedented. It's the first time in Premier League history. I'm not sure if it's top flight history or just Premier League, but first time in Premier League history, at least, that a game had to be postponed because of fan activity. So this is a pretty massive story. If you're not aware of it, we're about to lay it all out in our usual 20-minute format. So this is about the cancellation of the Northwest Derby, Manchester United, Liverpool at the weekend. So, start the clocks, please. And here we go. So, Mike, we were all kind of after the European Super League fiasco. Two of the progenitors of the ridiculous idea were due to meet in one of the most hotly anticipated derbies of the season. A fair amount was riding on it. Liverpool pretty much had to win or they could kiss goodbye to their Champions League hopes. We had to win, otherwise City would officially be confirmed as champions. So there was relatively quite a lot riding on it. And then the shit hit the fan. It all kicked off. Just remind the listeners what happened generally.
Yeah. So, firstly, be remiss if we didn't mention, actually, we did promise that we were going to discuss something else tonight, didn't we? So just get that out of the way. Obviously, the new Champions League format. We did say at the end of the last one we'd do that. We will pick that up again next week. Obviously, just with, like Aaron said, with this particular issue, especially, I guess, given it being our club as well, it probably has something to do with it. But, we thought we'll cover this one while it's still hot off the press, if you like. And we'll revisit the Champions League format and, tear that apart next week. So we had a bit of trouble. Didn't we? So one thing that I'm happy, I'll just throw it out there as well, I'm happy to see have been happy to see lately, and I'm not sure how I really do feel about it, given that we are still in like the COVID situation we're in.
Yeah.
But I'll explain what I am happy about is that there seems to be, and whether it's how real that is or not, I don't know. But there seems to be kind of in football at the moment anyway, people power seems to be a thing. Do you know what I mean? It seems to people are making a difference. So you alluded to the Super League, and the backlash of that was unprecedented. Like everyone in the whole wider football community coming together and not just bitching and whinging, actively doing things, and that it changed the tide, and and let's hope that this particular, or these protests, that I'm sure there'll be more, have continue in a similar vein and have a similar effect. And by that I mean they affect change.
Yeah.
So we had a situation whereby there were United fans, 10,000 I saw. I don't know if that's a number you've seen.
Maybe outside the ground.
Outside, initially, outside the ground, protesting, And if you don't know what they were protesting, or at least who they were protesting against by now, where have you been? For the last, 15 years or whatever. But obviously protesting against the plague that is the Glazers, and actually, they took that protest into the ground. So actually got inside the Theatre of Dreams. They got inside Old Trafford on the pitch and continued their protest from there. Now, I think that with these things, I know, everyone has their own kind of varying levels of what they think is acceptable and how liberal is this person or whatever. But I think there's a time and a place. But I'm so happy, that people are actually taking action, because I mean, well, we'll go into more detail, I'm sure, about who the Glazers are, what they're about, what they've done, why they're here, why we don't want them here. But I'm happy that the people are actively showing their distaste, and they have done since they took over. But I'm hoping that this will make a difference and something will change as a result. And as a result of the stadium being stormed, if you like, obviously that game that there was a big game that Aaron spoke about has ended up being put on hold. So pretty big. I don't ever remember that happening before. So pretty fucking huge. And let's hope that they pay attention to it. So yeah, I mean, I'm assuming your thoughts are pretty much the same as mine, Aaron, right?
Yeah. Good opening, Mike. I thought before we went on to the whole tub thumping stuff.
Okay.
What I think is really important for this video is hopefully we're not just talking to United fans. United fans understand what this is about. So me and Mike understand what it's about. You talk to almost any United fan, hopefully, they understand why the Glazers are so hated and are not wanted and not welcome anywhere within Manchester United. Let me just quickly lay it out for anyone who doesn't understand, because I don't know about you, Mike. I hear one or two comments. Souness was being a bell end. Jermaine Jenas was playing dumb. Oh, I don't understand what it's about. Souness was suggesting lack of trophies, lack of recent trophies. That's what they're worried about.
Fucking Souness is a prick, I tell you, isn't he?
He's a professional prick these days. And by the way, if we have time, I'll talk about Souness's hypocrisy, because he comes out with such bollocks. Anyway, Jermaine Jenas was playing dumb as well. I don't really understand what they're complaining about. They spent such and such on these players. They spent such and such on these players. Okay, let me lay it out for anyone who's too tribal to understand or talk to an average United fan. Basically, the basic background of this story is, as soon as United was floated as a public limited company, unfortunately, there was the risk that this would happen. So that's when it happened, when we became a PLC. That's how it happens, because then shares are available on the open market. And you can get these kind of hostile takeovers, so to speak. Anyway, unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it, because he is the greatest manager in our history, but Sir Alex Ferguson played a big part in what's happened with his egotistical antics about the Rock of Gibraltar. So this is what ultimately caused this. Was Sir Alex, this was a period in his career which was very strange, because we'd won the treble and then we won the subsequent 3 titles in a row. He was conquering all before him. I don't know whether suddenly things got to his head, but he started quibbling with was it JP McManus, I forget the names of the two guys who I believe gifted him Rock of Gibraltar, something along those lines. But Fergie started quibbling about who owned the racehorse, who was entitled to this or that. He demanded that it was his horse. I don't know the exact story, but this is pretty much how it started. Anyway, that quibble led to these two guys who were major shareholders in the club, basically to get back at Ferguson, deliberately offloaded their shares, which then allowed one of the Glazers who had already started buying shares to increase his shareholding and ultimately launch a takeover bid. So just to give you a very quick rundown, because there's a very handy timeline here for people who don't understand like the sort of how this happened. So 2003 was when Malcolm Glazer first bought like a 2.9% stake, right? So then that led to the Rock of Gibraltar stuff, and he gradually increased more and more of his share. And in May 2005, he made a formal takeover bid. That's what happens when you have so many shares. You're kind of compelled to try and make a takeover bid, become the major shareholder. And May 2005, he began it. And by June, he scored 98% shares and control of United. Now, this is why United fans were so disgusted at it, because this takeover was what you call a leveraged takeover. Now, you don't need to understand the ins and outs. Basically, the bottom line is what it means is the Glazers didn't spend a penny of their own money. They borrowed the entire amount of money and then leveraged it as debt for the equity of the value of the club. In other words, they borrowed other people's money from banks, and rather than take on the liability themselves, they loaded it onto the club. So this is a proud club, along with Liverpool, and you could argue maybe a couple of others, who have been trailblazers in English football and are massive landmark clubs in our shared cultural heritage. They'd never been in any debt, as far as I was aware, and the Glazers overnight loaded them with about £500 million of debt. Now, bear in mind, the unfairness of this ridiculous practice means that if the Glazers, for whatever reason, just went completely like, no, I'm in real financial trouble, walked out the door, that debt doesn't follow them. That debt is entirely the club's. And the club is effectively the fans. So the fans are paying for their action, effectively. So this is what makes it different from Manchester City and Chelsea, who had sugar daddies, very dodgy funding sources, but that's a story for another day. But they walked in and they loaded their own personal funds, ill-gotten, but their own personal funds on the club, invested in the club, spent for the club, through the club. And in Man City's case, as scummy as they might be, they've redeveloped, really impoverished areas of Manchester. So they've done really good stuff with it. Training ground, all these kind of things. The Glazers, on the other hand, have done the exact opposite. What they've done is they've taken a hugely valuable, successful, centerpiece club, and they have loaded it with debt. And the only thing that seems to be a success is them draining funds out of the club. About £1 billion at the moment. They take hundreds of millions, I think, pretty much every year for themselves. Massive dividends to shareholders. Meanwhile, as has been discussed by, the United fans, including Gary Neville, the stadium is starting to creak. The roof is leaking. Old Trafford was the best stadium in the country, bar none, at the turn of the millennium. And now, 15 years into their acquisition, parts of it are falling apart. Like Gary Neville said, we've gone from having the most state-of-the-art training facility to possibly dropping out the top 5. They have made very little investment in anything related to the club. When they've spent money, it's been basically because their hands were forced. But that's not their money anyway. You get idiots like Souness saying, what are they complaining about? They spent 80 million on Pogba. They spent this. They spent that. They got Maguire. It's like, that's not their money, Graham. They literally didn't use any of their money. They are paying it with United's own cash reserves that are generated by the fans effectively the fans are paying and the Glazers are taking the credit. So just, yeah, anyway, hopefully that was a concise explanation about why for United fans it's not about lack of trophies, it's not about we didn't get this player or that player, it's about the principle that these parasites have come in, added nothing to the football club, loaded masses of debt on it, putting it at risk, and still have the gall to take out tens of millions every single year for themselves. So anyway, I don't know what you want to add to that, Mike. Anything else that might illuminate people about why United fans feel so strongly?
I mean, you've been fairly kind of comprehensive there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not pretending to be a financial expert, but that's effectively the idiot's guide to what they've done.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said. I'm not a financial expert either, but I do question how it was allowed to happen in the first. I mean, there's no point fucking talking about it now. You know, like we said, 15, 16 years ago, it's done. It is what it is. I mean, you know, let's get though, as you labelled them, parasites, and they are fucking parasites. Let's get them out, and go from there. It's happened now. I'd love for someone to explain, maybe who does know more about it. Get in contact with us. Let us know exactly how that was able to happen in the first place. Because I mean, I don't. Like I said, I know what happened, but I don't know the legality about why it was allowed to.
I think what happened, Mike, is, well, again, as a non-expert, my understanding is that as soon as you are a PLC, pretty much anything goes. If someone wants to buy the club and they can prove that they can service the debt or whatever, it's a free-for-all. The problem was the Premier League allowing it to happen, because the Premier League could have still stepped in. Now, to me, the Premier League has been asleep at the wheel for years. It arguably shouldn't have allowed the Chelsea takeover. It should, there should have been a lot more scrutiny of, like, not even Sheikh Mansour. He's the one before, Thaksin Shinawatra. I mean, that was dodgy as fuck. Didn't he end up like in prison or something? So that should have been potentially prevented. Basically, the fit and proper owners test is not fit for purpose. And the fact that the Premier League just allowed, like you say, a prestigious landmark football club in this country get loaded with debt and potentially threatened.
Well, this is it. I mean, I don't think it actually should matter whether it was a landmark prestigious club like ours or any other club.
I'm not saying they're particularly special. I mean, it should have set an example that this can't be allowed to happen at any club.
Well, how can you be allowed to, put a club in debt?
It just,
like, is in, that wasn't like an unfortunate byproduct that people didn't understand was happening.
That
was.
They made no.
Do you know what I mean? It's not like we took a risk on this and we went for something and it's backfired and now we're in a bit of debt. No, that was the whole thing. That was the whole deal. It was the whole.
Did you see, by the way, there's been an update that they'd whittled the debt down to, I think, just over 100 million, because remember, it's about 500 million when they took over.
Yeah,
it was whittled down to either just over or just under 100 million. During the year of the pandemic, it's gone back up to over 400 million, the debt. So anyway, sorry, we're running out of time. Mike, as for the actual protest, what do you think about the accusations that, people went too far? Souness was talking about, somebody threw a bottle at our gantry. Somebody threw a flare at us.
Yeah, look, I've got to be honest. Fuck Souness. So
I'm going to be honest and say it probably would have knocked some sense into him if a bottle would have hit him.
Yeah, I hope that's who they were aiming for.
I mean, let's be honest. Souness, I'm sorry, but Souness, two things just quickly. Souness as you can see widely on the internet, made a tackle that could have put someone in a fucking wheelchair, and he has the nerve to talk about violent behaviour. And the other thing that someone mentioned as well was, remember when he was manager of was it Besiktas, or which club did he manage in Turkey? Bollocks, I can't remember. But that club he managed in Turkey, do you remember when they won the cup final, the Turkish Cup? And he marched over to the centre circle. This was in their rival's ground, and planted their club flag in the centre circle.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing you do if you've got a fucking death wish in Turkey. And again, Souness has the brass neck to call on people for volatile behaviour and for being rowdy. Bloody hypocrite swat. Anyway, other than Souness, a lot of the other pundits, Gary Neville, fair play to Jamie Carragher, you know, nobody's saying, oh yeah, it's great that they attacked a cop, although as we know, cops don't always tell the truth, as we've seen in Bristol. But you know, if they've attacked anyone, I heard someone was gashed. I mean, that's out of order. Nobody condones that, obviously. But the protest as a whole, it had the right intentions. Yeah, some rowdy twats got out of hand, but I'm sure they were dealt with.
I think what we've seen is that and probably why it happened is we've seen that these things can make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, a lot of the time, sometimes you know they don't, but they can make a difference, and that's why people do it, because you know they feel that passionate about it. Now, I do think there's a line, and you know, like you said, I think fantastic has happened. Do I think, you know, getting inside the club and even on the pitch, as long as it wasn't damaged, do I think that is too far? No, I don't. Not anymore. No. But you're right. You're right. Protest, by all means, stand up for what you believe in. And it's this, and that isn't just, you know, United fans. This is a principle, like this, the whole thing from start to finish, everything to do with those scummy parasites shouldn't have been allowed to happen, and it has. And enough's enough, and I think that's what it's about. So by all means, protest. But what I will say is that there is no place for violence when you do things like that.
No,
you know,
I mean, there's people. There's people.
All you do is you dilute your message.
Well, there's people there at the club who are nothing to do with the Glazers and whatever. And if they're being intimidated and having to hide in offices, that's not really on.
No, you don't want to dilute the message. Turn people's attention away from the reason you're there, what you want to achieve. You start doing stupid things like that. And first of all, you don't represent Manchester United fans if you're doing things like that. Just as you wouldn't if it was a similar thing happening at Liverpool or Chelsea or Aston Villa or anyone for that matter. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't be representing the core group of those fans. You're just a fucking prick. But you should. So that absolutely, that is, don't do it. You know, I think Roy Keane made a joke, didn't he? Like, I think he said, "Oh, I think a couple of bottles or flares might have been thrown, but I think they were just aiming at Jamie Carragher." But you know, and you know, fair play if you were. No, I'm joking. I'll tell you what, though. I'll listen to Jamie Carragher talk about Manchester United, because you can tell that he's not a Manchester United fan, but he's not a complete twat about it. Graham Souness can fuck off.
To be fair, there's always been a rumour that Souness is quite well to do, even for a Scotsman. He's a bit of a fucking Tory. So anything that involves challenging the people in power is like, oh. But again, you know, he was talking about, when he was talking about Liverpool the other week, you know, the protest at Liverpool about the European Super League. You know, the stuff he was coming out with there was complete opposite. Oh, you know, the owners, I think the owners will probably have to look to sell, because Liverpool fans won't let them forget this. Well, what do you mean by that, Graham? What you mean the Liverpool fans have threatened them? They're intimidating them? But you just said that, you know, these kind of antics are not on, and it's the wrong kind of protest. You fucking hypocrite. Anyway, quickly, Mike.
Yeah.
The message I'd like people to take out of this, if they're watching this at all, and aren't United fans, and they didn't understand how shitty the Glazers are, is we really need to support each other, right? You know, we all take the piss out of each other when it's about football or managers changing clubs or whatever. Anything goes, banter, calling them cunts, whatever. That's fine. That tribalism is good. But when it's threatening clubs, like somebody made the point, I don't know if it was Jermaine Jenas or something, made a ridiculous point, like, or implication that, well, you know, do we, you know, would they support this kind of action at other clubs? Yes, I fucking would. If Newcastle fans invaded St James's Park to get that fat cunt Ashley out, I'd be like, fair play, guys. Don't hurt anyone, but you fucking stay there. Shut the game down till that twat ends up selling up like he's been promising for 5 or 6 years. You know, if Liverpool fans, you know, as much as we hate them, if they decide that John Henry has gone too far, they want him out of the club, and they just do rolling protests, whatever, I'd support it. We have to realize these protests are about defending the heritage of these clubs from basically these vulture capitalists. You know, tribalism should go out the window. When there's cunts running your club who are just draining it of excitement, of money, of resources, then, you know, you need to tell them to sling their hook in whatever way, you know, you deem necessary, trying to avoid violence. Unless it's Graham Souness, in which case fucking throw a bottle at him. Anything to add, Mike? Because we have gone a little bit over.
No, on that case, no. I think we covered it off. I think, you know, it's a big news story. It's about Manchester United, but it's not just about Manchester United, if that makes sense. You know, there is a bigger picture. There is a bigger message. And, you know, hopefully, I hope that nothing like we've had to endure, and it's not over yet, happens to another club, to be honest.
Exactly,
I'd hate to see it happen to another club, any club. So, no, other than that, just hit like, subscribe, leave us a comment.
Any suggestions? Well, you know, if anyone has any suggestions, topics, they
suggestions. Tell us if we've missed the mark on something, and you're more enlightened on something than we are. Let us know. Yeah, as always, call Aaron a cunt. That's fine. All good. Anything goes.
Throw a Mike, yeah.
Yeah, throw a bottle at me. Stick a flare at my ass. Do what you like. Do what you like. I have no fucking boundaries. No limits. It's all fair game.
So,
but
yeah.
No, do like, subscribe, share it. You know, if you like listening to us chat shit.
You know you want to. Share us.
Yeah, they do want to. Of course they want to. Of course they want to.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one more thing before we go as well. Hey, if you've enjoyed this, you know, we also do a version where we just talk about lockdown life and what's happening in the wider country. And even more importantly, we do have a podcast. Check out the podcast. It's different to what we do now, because now we talk about football matters, we talk about how lockdown's affecting people. But for the podcast, we tackle particular subjects, and we use Wikipedia and other sources to enlighten ourselves. And there's some comedy and debate along the way. So, you know, if you're searching for something to stop you from being bored or keeping your mind busy while you're doing something else, get on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Late Night Large. We're on there. And on that note, we will grow you next week, people. Stay safe.